Hey, hey, hey.
What's going on, Dr. Tiff?
Just Tuesday, just another Tuesday. How about
Got
you?
Tuesday talks.
Yes, always fun, always a good time. How has your week? What has your week been off to this time?
Well, we're testing. We've done a couple of episodes about this whole season here, and it is upon us. And so it's day 2 for us at my school, and the kids were great yesterday on the first day, and then today they're like, leaning in their seat, closing their eyes,
Yeah,
try, trying to stay awake. I don't
yeah,
know. It's ELA right now, and math is on Thursday and Friday. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that at the end of the week. We'll see.
right. Feel like that should have been at the beginning of the week, but you already know how I feel about math. I've said that on here many, many times. Um, I think that when we develop what we're going to talk about on our Tuesday talk, stuff starts manifesting in like real life because it's been a challenge this week with my son and the emotional regulation. And I know we're going to talk about that tonight for our topic as an extension of last week. But I don't know if we opened up something in the ether, but stuff has been like very strange around here. The
Well, so
behavior.
you know what happens, right? The one of my mentors that I've had before would say, energy grows where energy goes. And so wherever you put your focus on, your energy goes to that. And so it becomes magnified and things start happening.
Well, I'm glad we had already developed this episode so then I knew how to respond. I knew what I was dealing with. It wasn't what it looked like on the outside. I knew what was going on behind the scenes. So then that helped me restructure my response, I will say. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that.
You got it, girl. Here, you got a high five from me too.
Thank
Okay.
you. It could have went way left, and it didn't because of what we're going to share tonight. So if you didn't join us last week or you haven't caught the replay yet for last week's episode, you want to give them a quick recap what we talked about on executive functioning, Val?
Absolutely, because this whole term executive functioning is fairly new for me. And so just to kind of rewind it back, official definition is like the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, to remember, and to juggle multiple tasks. And we just kind of talked about how that shows up in schools, for example, where you have kids that have the book bags that have just all this stuff. You ask them to find something, they don't know where it is. Or you have kids that you've given them a task to do either at school or at home. Maybe it has, multiple steps, multiple processes, and the kid's just sitting there and you're like, what are you doing? They don't know
Yeah.
where to start
Yeah.
because they haven't developed their executive functioning, which happens in the front of their brain. And like, I don't know if anybody knew, but on average, it takes kids like till age 25 to develop this frontal lobe that they call it, where your executive functioning skills happen.
Yeah. 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 Very great episodes. If you haven't seen it, I implore you to go check it out. So tonight we're going to break off a piece, a component of executive functioning and dive a little bit deeper into it. And that is going to be emotional regulation. So if you have heard that word before, great. We're going to go deeper into breaking it down, what that looks like, and how to respond. And then if you haven't heard of it before, emotional regulation is basically what it sounds like. It's the ability to kind of handle the emotional responses by thinking about our actions and our thoughts and our words. So if you can imagine a 5-year old, a 15-year-old, even a 25-year-old taking that pause, there's power in the pause. I've learned that to regulate what they're feeling on the outside, on the inside, so that they can make sure that the way they respond is appropriate and it is respectful, and it doesn't get them a consequence if they're a younger child, out of school suspension for an adolescent, or fired from your job if you are an adult. So making sure that you have learned that process of regulating your emotions is really complex, and it brings in so many different skills, including attention, planning, cognitive development, and then language development too. And like we talked about last week, that attention, being aware of the situation that you're in, taking that second to plan how you're going to respond, having the cognitive development to the point where you can say, this is the right way to respond, this is the wrong way to respond, and then knowing the appropriate words to use in that situation. Um, that's
Absolutely.
the pull into that.
Right, right, right. Like as you were talking, I'm sitting here thinking, I feel like I have so much experience and examples for like every single, like there's always something specific. And I just remember talking to one of my students about when she was in elementary school, and she was saying, what caught my interest was she said, yeah, I got mad and I picked up a desk and threw it. You in second grade. So I'm like, well, first I was like, was it a big desk? Because okay, that's irrelevant. Let me focus. Executive functioning, let me focus. And so I started asking her questions like, what were you thinking in the moment? Do you even know? And she was like, I no, the teacher was in my face. I got mad and I threw the desk. Like
Mhm.
you all, she really wasn't thinking. Like, that's not her lying or anything like that. There will be no point in me asking her more to dig into that in that moment. What I did in response was to let her know that there's always thinking happening. When you make a decision, your process just happens so fast that you're not even aware of what the thought is anymore. And we just
Mhm.
kind of went from there. And she was receptive of that. And we could talk about some things to do, to help slow down that process so she can pause and think first.
Yeah, it's like that Snickers commercial. If you remember from back in the day, where somebody would be angry and they might be at one celebrity and they're angry and they're knocking things over, and then they're like, "Dude, you need a Snickers," and they give them a bite of the Snickers, and then they turn back into their regular self. It's like that. If you have a toddler, you can see them almost like become a different person when they are emotionally charged. They lack the language at that age to express what really is the problem, so they throw a tantrum in lieu of using their words. So I like to set a definition. So for the American Psychology Association, they talk about the ability for kids to manage negative feelings depends on genetics, their natural temperament, the environment that they grow up in, and outside factors like how tired or hungry they are. Parents, teachers, and caregivers all play a critical role in helping children learn how to manage their feelings. So all of those, all of that management of negative feelings depends on those things that I just listed. So there's a
Mhm.
lot at play, and we don't want to think it's just ever one thing. It can be many things at the same time contributing to how a child decides, I'm going to throw a desk right now instead of use my second grade language to talk to you about why I'm upset. I'm just going to act out because now I have your attention, even though it might be negative attention. So I like how this American Psychology Association article talks about parents, teachers, and caregivers all play that critical role in helping
Mhm.
children manage their feelings. And that's what we're going to really talk about tonight as well. So I wanted to kick it off with the first way to help kids manage their emotions. And these are all science tested strategies that we're bringing you all today. Great ideas from us, but we also back this up with research too. So, first, starting early. How can I help my child manage their emotions? Start early. Infants who are very quick to react and hard to soothe are more likely to have trouble managing their emotions when they get older. But all kids can benefit from teaching them about their feelings. So, caregivers, parents, teachers start talking to kids about feelings when they're when these children are younger. Point out emotions and feelings and reactions in books that you're reading to them, movies that they're seeing when characters feel sad, when they feel happy, angry, or worried. Point those things out as a way to help them identify and label an emotion to a word.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really critical one. I'm all about early intervention. You know that. The
That is
earlier
one
you
of your
can intervene,
specialties.
the better. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So what's
Yeah.
another way you have to share with us, Val?
So another way would be to connect. So something that I have been graced to be really good at is being able to connect with my students and connect with them quickly. So, studies show that children who have like those secure, those trusting relationships with a parent or a caregiver or an adult, like at school, they are better able to regulate their emotions, like even as young as toddlers, versus those who don't get their needs met. And
Hmm.
one of the biggest things is to be consistent while you're trying to comfort them, being intentional about comforting them, because you want them to develop that secure, or you want to develop that secure attachment to the child.
Hmm.
It helps in their development, their growth, for them to be secure in who they are. When they know their needs are going to be met, they develop into better little human beings that can understand their emotions and how to process them and how to respond to them,
Yep,
right?
yep. That consistency part is big. And I know for anybody who has young kids and even older kids too, I speak from the younger kid side because my kid is younger, but that consistency can be hard. I can have a couple of days where I'm on my A game, things are all going the way that they should during our day. And then I get a curveball thrown in there with work, or maybe I have to deal with something personal. And so it can throw off that consistency. So if that does happen, acknowledge it, give yourself some grace, and then get back to providing that consistency because the kids really benefit from that. Indeed. Another great way to help kids learn how to manage their emotions is talk and teach. We talked about this last week. Explicitly teaching your children to recognize and name their emotions is not just something that they learn through osmosis. They have to be taught this. Last week, I used the example of teaching your child how to tie their shoe. You didn't just throw them a shoe and say, figure it out. You showed them the steps to learn how to tie their shoe. You sat down and you gave direct instructions, step by step. You modeled it for them. So don't bother trying to have this type of teaching session with your kiddo while they're upset. Because think about when somebody's talking to you when you are upset, sad, angry. Is if it does go in one ear, it comes right out the other. But the chances of it even getting in are slim. So don't wait until that moment to try and talk about the emotions. You need to find that time when they are calm and you can have the opportunity to talk to them about feelings and give them some ways to help manage them. It won't all sink in one conversation, but you can lay the groundwork to help build on further conversations down the road.
Yeah, because a lot of the talking that you're going to have to do, you also have to be regulating your emotions, because if in these kind of situations, if that kid is acting up, if the kid is tripping, then it triggers something in you first. And
Woo!
so
Yes.
we had an episode earlier where we talked about talking to the kid versus talking at the kid. Well, that involves self-regulation of your own emotions. And another tip that we have is like modeling good behavior, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a definitely a good one, and it goes right along with what you just said. In order for you to teach something, you got to know a little bit of something about it yourself, right? Like, I can't teach you to tie your shoes if I don't know how to tie shoes either. So, we got to learn as the parent, as the teacher, to manage our own emotions and how to identify certain feelings if we're going to teach that to our kids and to our students. So just like last week, we said model, model, model. You have to model it. The old saying of "do as I say, not as I do," that's out the window. We can't operate like that anymore. We are better than that. So kids learn by modeling. They model what their parents are doing, not just what they are saying. So they're watching, and you have to be a good model for them. And if you mess up, and I will be honest, I lost it earlier this week. I was like, enough is enough. We've been talking about the same thing. And then I owned it. Okay, you know what? In that moment, this is why I was frustrated. I have been repeating myself over and over. You weren't listening. And so I felt like I needed to get your attention by raising my voice. That was me reacting out of emotion. I'm calmer now. So I can talk to you about it in a more uh, approachable manner because I'm sure in that moment you did not want to have further conversation with me. But we have to model it. And if we are, as the humans that we might not follow the rule to the letter every time, but just own it in that moment. That empowers your kids so much to own their ish later. That is an important skill. Own it. You have to. You have to. And so modeling good behavior is great. And if that breaks down, just own it, talk through it with them, and that gives them a good example for themselves as well. What's another strategy that you have, Val?
So I love the fact that in your story, in your experience, we could hear the frustration when you were talking about the moment. And then when you talked about going back to him, I could also hear the calm at which you went back to him. That was your emotional state. And so that's another strategy is to stay calm. Um, if you can't stay calm in the moment, we got to find some strategies to get out of the moment the best way you can so you can go calm down. Modeling good behavior is obviously easier said than done, especially when you have like this little preschooler who's throwing a huge tantrum for what you feel like ain't even worth it by a little bit. And so, and don't forget the older kids, especially middle schoolers. Like
Ooh,
they have tantrums too. It's just in bigger bodies. Okay,
yep.
so they can do more stuff. They can throw desks easier as an eighth grader versus a second grader. So, like, when you're in the situation, you feel like you're just about to completely lose your cool. Like, the best thing to do first is breathe. So, when
Yep.
your body gets all riled up and gets all tense and tight, like, if you start, becoming aware, you're not breathing. And so the first thing you can do is just breathe to try to calm down in the moment. And like I said, if you can't in the moment, might want to just, walk away gracefully. Now, you can't just turn away from a kid who's in a crisis, obviously, and leave the kid emotionally deserted. But find ways to do that. Just, the important thing is when you communicate to the kid what's happening to make them aware of how they're responding to it, they're also going to be looking at you. And
Hmm.
so they're going to model what you do
Yep.
versus just simply doing what you say.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah. And I think too, you need to have some options. Like you have to be prepared to give the child some options. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So, especially in a classroom, when as the adult, as the responsible person, there is little that you can do. Um, so, kids like it of all ages when they feel like they're in control and they feel like they have choice. And so, but sometimes we know again that frontal lobe, that the executive functioning skills are not quite developed yet. And sometimes they don't know what their choices are. So, giving them some examples of what they could do, and I'm using the word could intentionally versus saying what you should do, because that has a whole different meaning in context, especially in those situations. Um, and just approach them that way. So, like, for example, if a kid's mad, refuses to complete some work, slams their computer, their Chromebook down, um, teachers can feel violated. And the teacher can have these emotions that come up in them. Um, Try in those moments to think about the kid's perspective and be like, okay, so you slam your Chromebook down. You must be frustrated. Um, we can go talk about this outside. That's an option. I can give you a few minutes to calm down right now if that's what you need. Would you like that? So I'm asking them, I'm presenting options, and I'm allowing them to make a choice. It goes a whole lot better when they feel like they have choice, when they feel like they don't.
Yeah. And I want to point out that that can go against, I know for myself, like how I was raised. You don't get a choice. You're the kid. I control the choices as the adult. That's how I was raised. So to flip that, it can seem like the power dynamic has shifted. And I know a lot of people can kind of be like, no, I don't want to I don't want to make that shift because now I'm giving too much control over to the kid. It's a matter of will. It's like a battle of wills, right? Like in this moment, the kid has slammed down their Chromebook. Maybe this is the fifth time they've done it, and you have talked to them calmly about it before and given them choices about it before. Here we are back doing the same thing. And so in that, it can be very frustrating and you can want to, lash out, but consider what the ramifications are should you lash out in that moment, right? Like now you're calling the attention of all the other classmates to this situation with this student. Now
Mhm.
all eyes are on y'all. And sometimes that can hype a kid up. Like, oh, now I got everybody's attention. Let me really show off. Let me really
Mhm.
pop off now because everybody's watching. And it becomes a show. So, choosing your battles is as much about trying to choose the better outcome for the situation versus looking at it as like you're giving control over to a child. So I hope that helps somebody see it a little bit differently because even as we were discussing, plans for tonight's episode, me and you both were like, now hold on a minute.
Look, I had to
we
do a lot of work in this area because in my class, it's my classroom. This ain't
right.
no this is a dictatorship. I'm the queen. This is my domain. You're gonna do what I tell you to do. And as I've become seasoned, I found that the less I put on that dictatorship on them, the less I impose it on them, there are other ways to get kids to do what you need them to do without it being a power struggle. When I
Yeah.
decided that I'm still in control and I can still allow the kid to feel like they have choice, like it was a game changer.
Yeah. And that's that controlled choice. You actually are giving them the option. You're just
Mhm.
letting them pick from the choices that you are giving them. So it's controlled choices. So it's not just a free for all, for sure, for sure. Another great strategy, and I love this one because I work with the little kids, and I just love a good role play, acting it out. I do this with my own students during our speech therapy sessions. I do this with my own kid, and older kids like to do it too. So, role play can be an opportunity for you to talk about possible options. So, you're role playing and you're rehearsing. You can take turns pretending to be your child and have them pretend to be the teacher. And in that particular situation, so let's take your example with the Chromebook. You write an email, text message to mom like, "Hey, Dante was kind of on one today, slamming his Chromebook down again. We've been down this road before. So if you could talk to him about it, it would be helpful." So maybe at home, once you're with your child at home, y'all can role play that situation. Have the kid be the teacher in that instance, let you play the role of your child, and see if you can talk about better ways to handle that situation going forward. Switching roles and letting the kid be the adult in the situation goes back to what you just said about options and how kids like to feel like they're in control. So acting out the scenario, having them be the person of authority, gives them that opportunity to even give you some insight in how they see that person in authority too. So try that out with all kids of all ages. I can't make a blanket statement that all kids like it, but kids of all ages like to act it out, especially when you can shift that power role and let them be the figure of authority in the scenario.
Yeah, that's really good. And not just for parents, teachers too. I don't know how many times I've role played with kids to help them communicate something difficult with their parent.
Mm,
Especially like right now, their grades. We just got progress reports out. And so I had some one-on-ones with some students, and it's like, so how are you going to present this to your mom before she calls me? Like, you're going to go home. You want to talk about it? Let's switch roles. I'll be your mom. Let's go.
yeah.
And they'll tell me later it really helped them when they did go home and approach it with their parents. Um, so another strategy that's really good would be to punish less and praise more.
Ooh,
So,
really?
we're very similar. We were brought up very similarly, and like, I'm gonna praise you for doing what you were supposed to do. Like, what is this? Uh,
That feels itchy to me. That feels itchy. Feels like it's not
exactly.
right.
Another growth moment. I just have to be honest. Like, it's really tempting to give consequences all the time for bad behavior. But strict punishment makes behavior worse. I promise. I see it. We see it in school all the time. And so when you have parents who are extremely harsh, like they just do not let up on those kids, like those kids have trouble managing their emotions. And they tend, when they react to things, it really is way more aggressive than other kids who don't have to deal with that at home.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
like there's research that says you really should praise a kid with 4 or 5 positives to every one negative reaction or reprimand or consequence that you give them. And
Wow.
so, by research, we really, as their caretakers, as the adults who love them, we should be giving them more positive energy and praising them way more than we do negative.
Yeah. And I think to make it a little more tolerable, because like telling me to praise for something that I know you're supposed to do, nobody's walking around behind me, patting me on the back all day saying, "Good job showing up to work on time, Tiffany. Good job picking your kid up on time from school." Nobody's praising me. So if you think about it, your kid comes home and they do their after school routine, whether that's putting their book bag where it needs to go, or I don't know, getting the trash from the curb, whatever they're supposed to do in that moment. It can just be a, hey, thanks for doing that. Thanks for putting that where it went. It just shows them that you see more than just the wrong things that they do. You actually do see the positive. Because I know in our minds as parents, even as teachers, we see the good that they do. We just might not always verbal it. But let something bad happen. I'm ready to tell you right then that that was the wrong thing to do. So if you think about it in those ways, it makes it a little less itchy, but it definitely goes against the grain for me. But I thought about it in those terms, and it helped me just be able to just take it and put it to use in a more personal way. And I know sometimes it could be a real topic of conversation about using reward as in relation to positive behavior. Like you did this, so now you get this.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
That the carrot at the end, well, carrot probably wouldn't even work no more these days. So,
Right.
the candy bar at the end of the cupcake at the end of the stick, like, so what we're not saying is that we believe that you should dangle this reward in front of them in order to get them to behave appropriately. In schools, there's this thing called PBIS, positive behavior intervention systems and supports. And the concept is this punish less and praise more that we're talking about. But there are some places where it has turned into the cupcake on the stick.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's hard to get teachers to agree on what we should be doing because some systems are telling kids, if you do XYZ or don't do XYZ, then you're going to get this particular reward. And it ends up messing things up because the kids don't want to behave unless they know they're getting something. And that's where we don't want to go. Except in
Yeah,
like, what about in SPED though? Because that's a
that's what
different.
I was going to talk about. So, with special education services, especially kids who are on autism spectrum, you use that reward to help them meet different milestones during the day. So having that reward chart where you can say, you finish your math work, you get, I don't know, 10 minutes on the iPad to watch your favorite video, or you finish this social skills group and then you get this reward. So that first you do this, then you get that mentality and concept can work for kids who have special needs because they need more um, interval based rewards to say go the whole day being good and then you get that's a long day. We at school for 6 hours. That's a long time. So no. We need to break that into smaller chunks so you can do this for this interval, earn this reward. Do this for this interval. And then over time those intervals can get longer, but the expectation to just do the right thing and be good all day and then you get your reward sometimes the next day. That's a very delayed gratification type of moment. And most kids can't hang for that long, for that long. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely you don't want to go into the area of a kid loses their privilege and then all of a sudden there's no hope. The kid has nothing to look forward to. Like there's still a place I think where kids should be able to earn back their privileges or whatever they have lost due to their bad behavior because we all make mistakes. We're all human.
Yeah. We all do for sure. So I know that we have a lot more to explore on this topic. I want to encourage everybody to first like and share this episode. Everybody can learn something from it. And then I invite you to join us back next week for Tuesday Talks, again, 9 p.m. Eastern, so that we can finish up sharing these strategies with you all on how to help kids learn how to regulate their emotions. So we're here every Tuesday. Join us live next week if you are able to, or catch the replay. But we're going to finish up this conversation on emotional regulation and then roll into the next component of executive functioning because it's a big topic. It's got a lot of arms and we can't cover it all in 30 minutes. It's impossible. I mean, we're good, but
Absolutely
we're
not.
not that good. So thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. Be sure to please like this episode. It helps us know that what we're sharing is valuable and you're getting something from it. And also share it. Share it out with a friend, with a colleague to help them as well. So we will see you next week. Have a
See
good one.
ya.
Bye.